Well, thank you for staying with us. First interview is looking definitely at the fight against insurgency and update. President Goodluck Jonathan will this Thursday join other African heads of state in Nairobi, Kenya to discuss the joint action against terrorism on the continent.
Well, it is the meeting of the African Union's Peace and Security Council, which is a follow-up to talks by the President and other African leaders in South Africa in May this year.
Now, the meeting is expected to receive and consider the report of the chairperson of the African Union Commission on Terrorism.
Now, this summit is to lead to more collaborative actions by Nigeria and other African countries to rid the continent of terrorism back in Nigeria.
There have been several other collaborative efforts between neighboring nations with Nigeria to fight the Boko Haram insurgency.
Well, there have also been reports of joint patrols and other collaborative efforts, and that is probably why the military authorities explained that some soldiers last week made a tactical maneuver into the Cameroonian territory.
Well, the Nigerian military has also been engaging the Boko Haram terrorists on all fronts, making sacrifices to save the lives of other citizens.
Before last week's Federal Executive Council meeting, President Jonathan met with service chiefs to review the counterinsurgency effort in Nigeria.
Now, last week, Tuesday, additional 1,000 troops were airlifted to Maiduguri to boost the fight against the terrorists who recently carried out attacks against some communities, including a police academy.
Well, this Tuesday, we will be taking another update on the fight against the Boko Haram insurgency. What type of support does the military and other security agencies expect from the citizens, and how should the information on the war and terror be managed?
Well, we are joined this morning by the privileged presence of Major General Chris Olukolade, Director of Defense Information. Welcome, Major General. It's good to have you.
Thank you. Good morning.
You're welcome. What is the update, General, on the fight against the insurgency in the country?
Well, at the moment, the series of efforts to ensure that the mandate given to the military to curtail the activities of terrorists, particularly in the northeastern part of the Federation, is continuing in the form of continuous raids on suspected or noted terrorist hideouts in that part of the Federation and other places. We're having air patrols and surveillance both on air and land to ensure that the whole place is well dominated to enable us to accomplish the assignment. Further to that, we are aware that there have been a number of what we call reverses recently in the form of attacks on communities and even attempts by the terrorists to gain and hold grounds. There's a lot of efforts going on at the moment to ensure that we reverse this trend and curtail the activities of the terrorists as expected of us. As you mentioned in your earlier remarks, the series of logistics that are required are also being put into the exercise. We're having troops moving into the various locations, and there's a lot of movement in the form of logistics and equipment to ensure that the assignment is accomplished.
All right, still talking about movement. Now, we've heard a lot of serious details over the press, and perhaps people have actually, passed words through the grapevine that may not have been true, or perhaps may just be mere allegation. Is there any part, of the Northeast that is under the control of the Boko Haram?
Well, control in the sense that maybe their activities are dominant in the form of what looks like a freedom of action for them to harass the citizens and deny them the rights that are guaranteed in our constitution. To that extent, we will say yes, they have places their activities are dominant and prevalent. Places like Goza, which is well noted by now, parts of places like Gambungala, and across like that, they've been moving. And in fact, that's the feature of the activity at the moment, moving from location to location and causing as much havoc as possible to property and people, and killing and maiming in different places. That is the prevalent action, and those are the things we refer to as reverses that we intend to, bring to normalcy and restore, and that's the focus of the activities at the moment, in the sense that those places that they are having freedom of action and moving around to cause mayhem, we want to reduce that tendency and bring them to book.
Okay, Mr. General, when newspapers reported last week about the defection of some soldiers into the Cameroonian territories, you came out to clarify that it was a tactical maneuver.
Yeah.
And we understand that the soldiers are back into the country. Now, what is the relationship between the Nigerian military and the Cameroonian military?
Well, the expectation by virtue of series of agreements between our countries is that we should be able to assist one another, particularly in the fight against terror. And that kind of gives us confidence to interact with each other, occasionally meet on patrols and call on one another when there's a need for it, particularly along the borders. And that gives our troops some freedom of action to see them as allies. We still believe that we're allies, we're operating as such. Maybe you refer to the incident that was reported last week. It's unfortunate that it was reported that way from the Cameroonian military, and that makes it look official. The description of the activities of our soldiers on their territory was very unfortunate, and unfortunately the Western media feasted on it, and again, unfortunately, our own media followed suit to misinterpret the activities of our soldiers and gave the impression that the soldiers were actually, defeated and, confused. It's really not so, and it's unfortunate that despite our explanations, it appears that people really mean to believe the contrary and hold on to the position given by the Cameroonian military to ridicule the Nigerian military. We don't expect that from our own people. We expect to be believed, we expect to be understood, and we interact with our neighbors in good faith and in the spirit of the cooperation that is expected globally to fight terror. But those are one of such issues. People think they can advance their country's interests one way or the other. We should understand how to approach ours.
I think that, currently the mental evaluation of situations by Nigerians has suddenly become an axiom, because a lot of times it's regardless of what the government is doing, people are entitled to what they think. But I also think that, that is why we have you here, to actually speak to Nigerians yourself and help clarify issues. I remember Albanese said to the Akwa Ibom State Governor, Akpabio, when he started his duty, and the governor said that perhaps what the military also needs is more forces, more hands on deck to help fight this. Do you think, just as you look at the Boko Haram recruiting people and creating cells, do you think that the military has enough, hands to actually fight this war?
Well, everything is being improved incrementally. There's interest, particularly by government, to ensure that the ability of the Nigerian military and security agencies to contain the situation is enhanced on a regular basis. I will speak to you maybe as a matter of reports. I can assure you and Nigerians that a number of equipment are already around and waiting to be deployed. In a short while they will be deployed, and we believe that their deployment will improve our firepower. It will improve troops protection, that is the ability to be protected while operating. We also believe that the introduction of that equipment will improve our speed to operate within the mission. A lot of logistics is being moved around, and incrementally the response and the management of this situation will be enhanced, and that is also coupled with the involvement of troops. I mentioned earlier that troops are being moved around in response to the situation. The important aspect, as assessed, is to improve the mobility, the speed by which they can respond. You also note that the Air Force is getting more active. In a short while, short of saying, giving a precise date, the best I can say is in a short while, the difference will be noticed.
Okay, let's look at the relationship between the Nigerian military and our neighboring countries. I'm still talking about the incident that happened in Cameroon. Now, Major, why do you think really that the media prefer to feast on the revelations of the Cameroonian military rather than believe the Nigerian military? It calls for concern because a lot of Nigerians want to be sure that the Nigerian military can protect them from the insurgents.
Yes, and the Nigerian military, sees that as an obligation, and everything is being done and put into it. But that does not remove the necessity to collaborate with our neighbors, and particularly the fight against terror globally is becoming a matter of partnership between nations, between interest groups, and we've committed ourselves to working with neighbors, and we believe neighbors are committed themselves to working with us. From our own citizens, what we expect is understanding and occasionally, encouragement. And the encouragement should be in the form of either believing us or approaching us. I think we're literally approachable. But what we have seen is a trend in certain quarters to want to put down the military as if already defeated and of no worth. Yes, we can understand that with the experience everybody feels frustrated. This is really the vision of terrorists, and terrorism is meant to turn the citizens against the state and make the state feel unprotected and make the citizens feel unprotected by the state. Unfortunately, it appears that terrorists want to achieve that with the way some elements of critics intend to assist them this far by engaging in a number of very discouraging remarks that give the impression that the activities of troops and agencies is of no worth. What we expect is understanding. Yes, like we said, the frustration could be very painful to everybody, and we're doing our best to reverse it, and the best we can do at the moment is assure Nigerians that every effort is being put into it, both on the part of the leadership and the troops that are operating on the ground, and nobody is sleeping. Everybody is just putting in the best to curtail the situation, but it must be done the most professional way. This military has a pedigree of getting results even outside the country, and we have an obligation this time to our citizens, and the commitment is that the Nigerian military will not fail.
All right, now the counterinsurgency is like every other war. I mean, it's not just in Nigeria that we've seen. We see South Sudan and Sudan. We've seen Somalia. We've seen a lot of African countries in crisis, even the northern Mali. We do know that a lot of the things that people see and embrace are what they see on television or what they hear on radio. Now, how can the psychology of the Nigerian, citizens begin to work towards understanding their role, especially through the media? How can the media help with this fight against insurgency?
I think it begins with the media itself trying to understand both in terms of theory and activities of terrorists globally, and see where the trends key. I think that understanding will prevent them from being hoodwinked to play the game in the favor of terrorists unconsciously, and that's what appears to happen most of the time now. It appears that some people work for the terrorists unconsciously by projecting their ideas, by attacking the agencies of government. By the way, when you talk of war, when a war is declared, wars are declared by the country, by the nation, and the military is only tasked to prosecute it. The worst form of war is when the people are at war with themselves, and that's what terrorists want to achieve, to make the people turn on each other. And in our case, it's better to prevent that from being, and that we feature by virtue of more understanding of what's going on and endeavoring to interact.
Okay, the president will be meeting with other African leaders of other African countries in Kenya to talk about the security situation. We saw a similar meeting held in France sometime in May, and one will begin to wonder why it's taking perhaps too long for the African countries, talking about the neighboring countries now, Chad, Niger, Benin, to begin to work together, to harness resources, military capabilities to fight this insurgency. What exactly is the challenge?
Maybe I should see it as a matter of correcting an impression. We're actually working together. Let me refer you to the multinational joint task force that operates particularly in the Chadian basin and the Lake Chad basin. A lot of collaboration is ongoing there. We're having joint activities with Chadian forces, with Nigerian forces, regular patrols. Occasionally, terrorists that try to cross such areas have been arrested, and the activities have not been very free, particularly along those borders. So there's a lot of collaboration that have been promoted by this interaction between nations, and maybe the challenge is to keep improving it incrementally. I think the nations concerned are doing their bit in this respect, and perhaps as we move on, their level of input. Of course, you also know that this involves resources of each nation. The challenges may be in the form of resources that are devoted into advancing the cooperation.
All right, now, a lot of times we have heard from analysts and people who supposedly have ideas of how to fight insurgency better, theoretically. You find them saying that, this is not just a conventional warfare, and that there should be more the approach of the carrot and the stick approach, and, the soft approach should actually be withdrawn, and all hands should actually face, terror for terror. But if you look at that phrase, you also understand that an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. So how do we expect that not to work in the favor, of course, of managing, citizen loss, is fighting in such a way?
Well, in our own case, I see a balance of the two. Government is still working on the soft approach. You will know that a series of interactions have held on how to advance the soft approach in Nigeria. But while that is also ongoing, we cannot leave the terrorists to be on rampage the way they want to be, and that's what calls for the military action that is ongoing to curtail those activities. Some of them are literally at the level of not being likely to repent of their actions, and those are the ones who must either apprehend or eliminate, and the action is in that direction. But I see whole that the two are going side by